Are you looking to catch up on all the latest Jays action? Missed the recent Blue Jays series and wondering if they could bounce back after a rough few games in Boston? You are in the right place. This is Station to Station, our Blue Jays series recap show here on Organized Chaos Sports. Following a series sweep at the hands of the Red Sox, the Blue Jays headed to the Steel City for a weekend 3-game series with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Could the Jays put an end to their first losing streak of the season? Stay tuned to find out. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoy. Station to Station, your Blue Jays series recap show, back with Dustin. Dustin, we are reviewing the 3-game series versus the Pittsburgh Pirates. First, we have a roster change that happened on Friday, where right-handed pitcher Jay Jackson was called up from AAA, and Zach Pop put on the 15-day injured reserve. Our lineup for the first game, across the outfield, we have Witt, Varsho, and Springer. Our infield, we have Chapman, Bo, Espinal, and Vladdy at first base. And behind the plate, we have Jansen. Our DH this game was Alejandro Kirk. Now, going into this game, pitching matchup, we had Chris Bassett versus Rich Hill. Bassett comes into this game 2-2 with a 5.18 ERA. Now, I don't normally talk about opposing pitchers, but I did want to touch base on Rich Hill, as I feel like he's a man after my heart. The guy's 43 years old. He's on his 12th team in the major leagues. He just keeps chugging. And even better, his nickname, Dustin, is Dick Mountain.
No way. I didn't know that.
Dick Mountain.
Yeah, well, Rich Hill, Dick Mountain, it makes sense. I see where it comes from.
Yeah, as a man in his early 40s, if I could, be pitching and even playing professional sports, it would be pretty awesome. But when I did look up a bit more about Mr. Hill, the first line was about his nickname, and I can see why.
Well, what broke my heart was that I heard he was the oldest player in the MLB, and he's only 3 years older than me. So we're it's getting a scary age here for us.
Well, the days of Jamie Moyer are gone, Dustin. So
True.
it seems like players are lasting longer, but maybe not as long as they used to. All right, rolling into this game, Rich Hill gets this game underway at 6:36 p.m. But the Jays don't waste any time at all. We have a Bo double to center field. Vladdy with an RBI single cashing in Bo, and Vladdy over to second, and that particular inning ends 1-0. Bottom of the first, I think, is the first of many Pittsburgh Pirates essentially mistakes that the Jays were able to catch them on, where Jansen throws out Ji Hwan Bei at third base trying to steal. So he successfully stole second base, but he got a little too greedy, and Danny Jansen threw him out at third. Bottom of the second, Rodolfo Castro tries to score on a wild pitch. Danny Jansen is involved in this one as well, as he gets up quickly and flips to Bassett, who applies the tag, and that ends that particular inning. So we have two mistakes right there on the bases. Top four, we have a Witt double to left field. He ends up successfully stealing third base. And we have a Varsho RBI double down the right field line, which Witt scores on, finishing that inning at 2-0. The bottom half of that inning sees another Pittsburgh Pirates error on the base pass, where Carlos Santana was thrown out trying to go first to third on a single to left field. Dustin, I don't know if you saw this, but it was probably the strangest decision I've seen in some time.
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking either. I think, you know, sometimes I don't know if I don't know much about the Pittsburgh, but I think they're a little bit of a young team. They're kind of the Rays of the National League, and all series they had made a couple questionable decisions.
Well, they are known as, I guess, a crazy team, but they actually led the league in stolen bases. So they're kind of an aggressive
They're
team,
aggressive, yeah.
wanting to push the issue as much as possible. And I think they really just got caught out by just a really better team and a team that probably knew that this is what they're going to do and was able to basically see some opportunities to get some outs because all three of those all three of those outs that we're talking about either took place at third base or home, which when we get to the final score of the game, that
That
matters.
hurt.
That kind of stuff matters.
Yeah, I think it also says a lot about, the improved defense that the Blue Jays have put together in the offseason, and it's paying dividends.
Well, top five, we have an Espinal walk, and then George Springer steps to the plate and crushes a two-run home run to straightaway center field, and that inning ends 4-0. The Pirates continue to offer up no offense before the bottom of the eighth, where we have our first pitching change of the game, where Eric Swanson replaces Chris Bassett. Bassett's pitching line in this game: 7.0 innings pitched, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, 4 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Dustin, before we wrap this game, uh, maybe touch on Bassett's appearance in this game.
A strong bounce back outing from him. He's just he's able to throw so many pitches and throw them so well, like effectively. So it's when you're watching, that curveball come in. I mean, he was matching Rich Hill in terms of, changing speeds. He can go up, down, left, right. When he's on and he's can throw all these pitches like where he wants to, Chris Bassett is up there amongst the aces of the MLB for sure.
Well, looking at his pitching line, the 4 walks probably, probably not what you want out of your starting pitcher, but really nothing more you can ask going 7 innings pitched with not an earned run on his stat line. Now, bottom of the ninth, we have another pitching change where Jordan Romano comes on to replace Eric Swanson. This is a non-save situation, and the game ends 4-0. Our winning pitcher, Chris Bassett, he's now 4-2 with a 4.28 ERA, and his WHIP is 1.23. So I thought this was quite a good start to this series, coming off that dreadful series against the Red Sox, and really led us into the second game.
Yeah, definitely a palate cleanser such as it is.
Well, and it was a shutout as well, so nice to get that one in the books. Game number two, our outfield is Varsho, Kiermaier, and Springer. Chapman, Bo, Witt, and Biggio are our infield, and Alejandro Kirk is behind the plate, and our DH is Brandon Belt. We probably should talk about Vladdy, and as I just mentioned, he was not starting at first and not at DH, and he was scratched from the game on Saturday with left wrist soreness.
Yeah, hopefully that is not a big deal. I heard some talking about it today, some interviews and discussions with John Schneider. Seems like, something mild. He's felt similar discomfort before and worked through it. I think him taking the day off, I think this game and then today's game, and then with an off day before the Philly series, hopefully that's enough, and he'll be back in the lineup. To take Vladdy out of the lineup takes a lot. So from that perspective, it's a little bit worrying, but hopefully it's not a big deal.
Well, it seems like there wasn't really a particular play where this may have happened. It may just have, been a build-up. Vladdy does play every day, pretty much. So, well, let's hope it's something minor and that he's back in the lineup this week. All right, our pitching matchup for this game: Jose Berrios versus Johan Oviedo. Berrios comes into this game 2-3. Johan Oviedo gets this game underway at 6:36 p.m. Similarly to the prior game, game number one, the Jays waste again no time getting on top of the Pirates, where we have a Springer single, a Bo walk. Dalton Varsho steps to the plate and hits an RBI single, which Springer scores on. We have a Chapman flyout, a Witt strikeout, but Brandon Belt then steps to the plate and he doubles to right field, and that brings in two RBIs with Bo and Varsho crossing the plate. Uh, Not to be left out, Alejandro Kirk steps to the plate and hits his own RBI double where Brandon Belt scores, and that inning ends 4-0. Dustin, really good way to start this one out.
I think this is the second game with at least 4 runs scored before Pittsburgh even touches, um, a hit. I think the bats have not been slumping at all. I think a big problem that the Jays have had over the Boston series was the pitching, and here we see, the bats just come through again, and thankfully the pitching held up.
Well, top three, the Jays are at it again. We have a two-out rally with a Belt walk, a Kirk single, which advances Belt to second base. Biggio then reaches base on a throwing error, and Belt comes around to score on that, pushes Kirk over to third base, and Biggio on that throwing error at first advances to second. Kevin Kiermaier then steps to the plate and hits a two RBI single to right field, in which Kirk and Biggio score on, and that inning ends 7-0. The Pirates then break up the shutout in the bottom of the sixth when they have an RBI single to center field, and that particular inning ends 7-1. Top seven, the Jays load the bases following a Brandon Belt walk, a Kirk hit by pitch, and a Biggio single. Kevin Kiermaier then grounds into a double play, but a productive one where Brandon Belt scores, and that half inning ends 8-1. Bottom of the seventh, the Pirates get a solo home run to right field. Following that, Anthony Bass replaces Jose Berrios. And Berrios' pitching line for this game: 6.1 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. And that inning ends 8-2. Dustin, another great outing for Jose Berrios.
7 strikeouts in 6 innings is a good start in my books, that's for sure. Love to see it.
So we have a couple more pitching changes before this game finishes. Bottom of the eighth, Tim Mayza replaces Anthony Bass. Bottom of the ninth, we have Jay Jackson, recently called up reliever, replacing Tim Mayza, and the game ends 8-2. Our winning pitcher, the aforementioned Jose Berrios, losing pitcher Johan Oviedo. Jose Berrios now 3-3 on the season, a 4.91 ERA, and his WHIP 1.24, and 41 strikeouts. All right, our lineup for game three across the outfield: Varsho, Kiermaier, and Springer. Infield, we have a Chapman, Espinal in at short, Witt at second, and Brandon Belt at first. and Danny Jansen is catching. And I guess the talking point of the lineup here is that Bo is our DH and not at shortstop.
Yeah, I think um, maybe just a rest day for him as well. Um, at least resting in the field, and there's an off day tomorrow, and he's another one that plays every day. So I think putting him in at DH, yeah, makes some sense.
Our pitching match of this game: Yusuf Kikuchi versus Ronzi Contreras. Kikuchi comes into this game 4-0 with a 4.02 ERA and a 1.24 WHIP. This game actually started almost 2 hours late with a rain delay, but Contreras gets us underway at 3:10 p.m. Top of the first, the Jays come to the plate and again open up the game scoring. We have a Bo single, a Varsho double, which Bo advances to third. Belt walks. There's a Witt RBI infield single, which Bo scores on, and the inning ends 1-0. Top third now. There's a Chapman single, Belt singles, pushing Chapman to second. And then Witt comes up and hits a 3-run home run to left field, scoring Chapman and Belt. And this particular inning ends 4-0. So Jays jumping on the Pirates again. Top five, Chapman walks. There is a Belt double, which pushes Chapman to third base. Jansen hits an RBI infield ground out, which Chapman scores on, and that inning ends 5-0. Our first pitching change for the Jays, another good outing going into the seventh, but Jimmy Garcia replaces Yusuf Kikuchi, and Kikuchi's pitching line 6.1 innings pitched, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Dustin, it didn't seem like he Kikuchi maybe had his best outing, but quite efficient again.
Yeah, I thought he was a little bit shaky, especially in the first inning. But he, I think, corrected a little bit. He got 3 strikeouts, which from him, I think usually see a little bit more than that. Strikeouts per inning. So yeah, I would say he struggled a little bit, but a quality start.
Well, I definitely noticed that he only had 3 strikeouts, but definitely a quality start, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. Bottom of the eighth, the Pirates spoil the Blue Jays shutout bid and score a run off a Carlos Santana RBI single, and that inning ends 5-1. The Jays come up in the top of the ninth. Somehow I don't know if they doubted they're going to win this game because Bo singles. There's a wild pitch that sends Bo to second, and then Varsho absolutely crushes a 2-run home run to right field, Dustin. And when they say out of the ballpark, this one was just that and actually ended up in the river. Following that, Belt singles. Danny Jansen has an RBI double, which Belt scores on. And then Kumeyer basically finishes the game with a 2-run home run of his own to right field. Not quite a towering shot as it didn't make it out of the stadium in that one, but Jansen scores. Bottom nine, we have our final pitching change of the game where Nate Pearson replaces Jordan Romano. And Dustin, I imagine this move was essentially made when the Jays really opened up the game.
Yeah, no need to get Romano in there for what would have been a 5-out save. Well, not a save, but a 5-out inning. Nate Pearson. Um, I think we can trust him enough to hold a 10-1 lead.
So the inning and game ends with the Jays winning 10-1. Our winning pitcher, Yusa Kikuchi, he is now 5-0 with a 3.35 ERA, and his WHIP is now 1.19. Our losing pitcher is Ronzi Contreras. The Jays sweep the series against the Pirates. This is their second sweep of the season and are now 21 and 14 and third in the AL East. Dustin, that was a perfect response to a terrible series against the Red Sox, and I feel like they really haven't lost much ground at this point.
No, I think, their record is pretty good for where we're at in the series. I think any other year without, I think we said it before, I sound like a broken record, but without the historical start from the Rays, I think we'd be in first place or at least, tied for second or something with the Orioles. So, uh, no complaints here. It's hard to watch those games, against the Boston Red Sox, you know, when it just felt like there was a different team that showed up in that series. And then here we are against the Pirates and we're back. I thought that the Pirates, they've got a pretty good record. They were 20 and 11 entering this series. Like I said, they're kind of the Rays of the National League. They got off to a pretty hot start themselves. So I thought it was going to be a little bit of a tough series, and it turns out that maybe they were a little bit of a paper tiger, as it were.
Well, I thought Pittsburgh were completely overmatched in this series, and we did hear a lot about their style of play and how they had a great start to the year, and all of these pleasantries spoken about the Pirates. But uh, you know, I think the Jays overpowered them, but they also played the Pirates better at their own game as well.
Yeah, that's true, and the Pirates, aggressiveness maybe cost them a little bit, because we were ready for it. So maybe there's a book out on the Pirates from that perspective now, and they'll get hurt by it if they don't, counter with maybe calming that down a little bit. We'll see how their series goes. We won't see them again this year, um, but I wish them well now that we don't play with them.
I thought also, in conversely to the series against Boston, the Jays starters in each one of these games actually had a quality start. So I think that's something to be commended. And the other item that I think stuck out to me a little bit was the bottom of the order really stepping up in this game. So yes, of course, Bo, he's usually doing his thing, and of course Matt Chapman, Vladdy was out for a couple games, and we had basically the bottom of the order really stepping up um, to help out where needed.
Yeah, some big contribution from Brendan Belt. He's showed up a little bit these last three games. Dalton Varsho as well. Um, so yeah, and Kirk as well. So yeah, I think that that whole lineup is top to bottom hard to deal with, and at any point somebody can be hot and just hitting the baseball well. So it's going to be tough for other opposing pitchers. There's no easy spot.
Dustin, could we have your player of the series, please?
I'm going to go with Dalton Varsho here. I think that he had a pretty good series. He's been having a tough time of late, but here against Pittsburgh, I think he went 5 for 13, scored 2 runs, 5 RBIs, a home run, and in May, he's increased, well, not increased, but his May batting average is 393, his OVP is 419, and he's slugging 821. So I think he's starting to heat up a little bit, and hopefully that continues.
Well, he seems to have made some adjustments in his swing. At least that was coming out on the broadcast, and it seems to have been paying dividends right away. Because he did, for everything that he brings to the table, he was struggling to start the year. So my player of the series is Brandon Belt. He's actually had his own struggles this season, but I think of recent, he's really got hot and been quite the productive player at the plate. This particular series, he had 5 runs, 5 hits, 2 RBIs, and 3 walks. And really, in those games where we needed Belt, especially those last two with Vladdy out, he was basically there to step up and be that bottom of the order presence that we had hoped when he signed him in the offseason.
Yeah, I know that he's kind of got a history of maybe having a slow start. He's got a history of being a good hitter as well. So I think people are maybe giving him a little grief because, this is the first time most Blue Jays fans have seen him on a regular basis do his thing. So I'm hoping that he can prove the haters wrong and be that kind of off the bench lefty pinch hit kind of bat that we need. And he seems like, at least in recent days that, he's starting to round out into that.
I'm going to give an honorable mention to George Springer. I think he's slowly coming out of his, I guess, early season funk. Although I think he was performing well in terms of his plate appearances, the numbers weren't there. But he had 2 runs, 3 hits, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and that big home run to center field.
Yeah, I think he's got a little bit of a bad luck problem recently, and I'm hoping that it seems like just watching his at bats, he makes solid contact, he hits the ball hard, he's got a good approach in general, but just the numbers aren't turning out for him. So I agree, he's kind of had a better series.
So the Jays now have a day off, and then there is a quick 2-game series in Philadelphia before returning home following another day off on Thursday for a 10-game homestand. So just quickly, the Phillies, 16 and 19 and fourth in the NL East. Their, I guess, big player who just returned to the lineup is Bryce Harper. Dustin, what can you tell us about the Phillies?
They're not a great team, but they're not, chumps either. I think their record is probably a little bit worse than it should be, based on what they are on paper. But I think again they're struggling team like the Pirates here, and hopefully that means that we can kind of take advantage of that. And if we take those 2 games, then this road trip will be, um, another positive. Well, at least in the positive for the most part. Splitting a road trip. Um, I think it would make it was 9 games, right? It would make it 5-4 if we took 2 from the Phillies. I mean, that's a pretty good road trip, despite what happened in Boston.
Well, if they are successful and do win those 2 games, uh, quite the swing in fortune that they will have.
For sure.
All right, I think that's all the time we have. Thanks for joining me, Dustin.
Thank you.
This has been Station to Station here on Organized Chaos Sports. We will be back on Friday morning to discuss the quick 2-game series with the Philadelphia Phillies. Could the Jays return home on a positive note? If you enjoyed this episode, we ask that you share it with one friend that you think may enjoy it as well. Thanks for listening, and until next time.